Hi everybody, it's Claire back with another art journal video, and again I'm playing in the big craft journal, which is from the new Dina Wakley release for May 2022. And I'm going to do a cutout page, and I'm going to use these stencils to create the page. So I've started off by drawing a border. I've just done it freehand. I wasn't particularly worried about it being straight lines, so some of the lines are a little bit wibbly, but it doesn't matter. And then I'm using these two stencils. So one is the Things That Grow stencil and mask set, and the other one is the Sprouts mask and stencil set. And what I'm doing is fitting these different shapes into the spaces that I've got available on the page and making sure that they touch in lots of different places. So obviously they've got to touch the outside edge, but then you need the pieces in the centre to touch each other so that the page joins together. So you can I've spent quite a while just sort of planning this out and working out what was going to fit and extending stems and making leaves a bit bigger in some places to make things fit where I wanted them to be. If you want to learn more about making a cutout page like this, there is a course on my website, artjournallove.com, which is quite an in-depth course involving making cutout pages that you design, where you design the cutouts yourself, and one where you use ready-made stencils to make your cutout pages. And that's maybe worth having a look at if this sort of thing interests you. I genuinely believe that anyone can have a go at this. It is just practice and taking your time. This is only sped up 2 times, so you can see that I'm taking quite a bit of time and turning my book, being really careful. So if this is something that interests you, creating pages like this, then hop over to my website and have a look at that course. There are other cutout pages, cutout page courses on there too, so it might be worth having a look at. So I'm using the Dylusions little mini cutting mat and my usual cutting knife, which is a bit like a scalpel. It's really, really sharp. It definitely makes doing things like this a lot easier. Although I must admit, by the time I'd finished cutting this page out, my finger was a little bit sore because it's quite involved. There's quite lots of little fiddly bits and bobs to cut out. So I'm just gradually working my way round the little bits that need cutting out. I'm cutting out the spaces in between the flowers and botanicals that I drew from the stencils, and you can see that I'm making sure that things touch each other in different places so that it makes the page stick together when the bits in between are cut out. And there we go, that's it finished. So now the next thing to do is to start adding some colour. Now I did start off with peacock on the stalks of the flowers and leaves, and I ended up changing it to fur in the end because I didn't really like how the peacock worked. It was a little bit too bluey. So even though this is how I've started off, it doesn't stay like that. And so that just goes to show that it doesn't matter, even if you add a colour that you don't like, you can overpaint it. There's not many things that aren't fixable. So I'm extending these stalks out into the border so they're going to touch the edge of the page, which I think just helps kind of ground the cutout bit so that it isn't just sort of floating in the middle. And then here I mixed up using a bit of turquoise and a little bit of lime green, kind of mixed this weird green colour, which I thought I quite liked, and then I decided that I really didn't, so this changes too. So next I'm adding some fuchsia onto this flower up at the top, and I'll do the same on the flower a bit further down so that it matches, just so that there's a little bit of cohesiveness to the page, and so that there's not going to be too many colours going on in the page. I'm going to use colours that are in a similar sort of colour palette, so purples, pinks, blues. So I've just added a little bit of turquoise onto the top of there and then just blotted away the excess using a baby wipe. And next I'm going in with magenta and adding some magenta to these little flowers. So at the minute this is the first layer, and I'm going to be adding more layers onto these. They're going to involve sort of sketching around the outside of the flowers and adding some more colours into the centres, and adding some mark making using some Posca pens that kind of coordinate with the colours that I've chosen. So here I'm just adding a bit of blackberry into the centre of those flowers. I'm just using the very end of my brush to get that colour in there, and then I'm going in again with a little bit of turquoise. And here I'm using blackberry. I think this shape's actually meant to be a leaf, but I quite liked it as a flower, so that's why I painted it purple. Well, why not? Rules are meant to be broken, aren't they, sometimes? And then I'm adding a little bit of that pink onto those flowers, so I wanted to push some of that blue a bit further away. And here we go, I've changed the greeny blue for the fur, and I think you'll agree it does work a little bit better. It's more in keeping with what else is going on, I felt. And then I'm using a black gel pen, and I'm just sketching round the outside of these flowers. And then I'm going to be using some Posca pens in colours that coordinate with what's already there, just to add some dots and some mark making onto the centres of the flowers. So here I'm just continuing with the mark making on these flowers and just building up little bits of detail, adding some white dots over the top of the colours that I've added. It just makes the flowers look a little bit prettier. But I guess dots are something that I use quite a lot in my journaling, so this is something that I quite enjoy adding onto my pages, and I really like how this looks too. So then I'm just finishing off outlining the flowers and altering where I've gone back in with more paints. I think I've added some sage over the top of the fur in some places just to add a little bit of a highlight onto some of the leaves too. And then the page behind, I decided I wanted to paint completely black so that it would help the cutout page to stand out. So I'm probably going to leave the back of the flower page blank for now. I may go in and paint it again at a later date, I'm not sure. I've also added some splatters of sterling gloss spray because I love how metallic it is. It's very pretty. So I've drawn through the front cutout page so that I could see where the border was. And then I'm going to put my quote in the middle of there. So I'm just sketching it out roughly where it's going to go so that I can make sure that I fit my words in properly. Then I'm using a large Posca pen and I am writing these words in. Had a bit of a disaster with the S on the end of the word flowers there, so I scrubbed it out, painted back over it and waiting for it to dry, and then I'll go back and add that in again in a minute. So if you've stuck with this page all the way to the end of this video, well done. This was quite a long one. Here I'm just finishing off adding some white dots onto the border of this page. And that's it, that's the finished page. So a really fun cutout page. This journal lends itself so well to cutout pages. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video and I hope to see you again soon.